everybody, and welcome to the first Trips and Traps, the post-holiday Trips and Traps. So actually, we're still in the holiday. It's New Year's Eve, and we'll, of course, wish everybody a Happy New Year's.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone had a great holiday season. And before we get to some of the races from the week we just concluded here at Aqueduct, we have some unfinished business to go back to even before the break.
Yeah, right. We actually split it up. I don't think we did it intentionally, but we ended up with 3 races from the week before the break and 3 races from the 3 days we came after it. But we'll get right into it, and we'll start with a race from the 12th. And actually, we'll be looking at the 4th race on December 12th. And we're going to primarily look at the 7, Jet on Home here. But the 5, Got Narrow, is actually also eligible on Wednesday's card. So there's a good chance if something happens with that horse that it'll happen maybe on Wednesday. If that horse doesn't get in, we'll be looking down the future. Here's the 7, Jet on Home, just after the break. Nothing happens early.
No, nothing happens early. This horse went off a big price in the race, almost 30-1, so didn't get too much attention first time out, but soon going to have a little bit of traffic trouble here. You see there's a group of about 4 horses in front of Jet on Home. And these horses are going to cause some traffic issues here for Jet and Home. But also keep your eye on the 5, Got Narrow, who's up close to that pace, drops back a little bit. There's the steady by Jet on Home. That's going to cost him a couple lengths. He's going to have to come out and outside, and keep an eye on both him and the 5, Got Narrow. Right.
Both of these were first-time stars. With Carlos Martin was training Got Narrow, and Carl Domino was training the 7, Jet on Home. Now, Got Narrow is the one on the inside here, and he kind of is getting in the process of getting shuffled out. And as that's happening, Jet on Home is going around him. Now, Jet on Home, besides the steady, had a pretty good trip up to this point, some good, some bad. But as he's moving towards the outside, and he's outside clear of horses, the rider, Victor Santiago, seems to go to the right-handed whip. And it's a first-time starter, and obviously he's a little green. I'm not particularly blaming the rider, but in that situation, you want to stay outside a horse. You can see he steadies badly off heels. Behind him, of course, is Got Narrow, who's been shuffled back a little bit. Got Narrow's got more momentum, gets by Jet and Home. Jet and Home hangs a little bit, not to get third money. But I thought, considering the trouble that both of these had, both of these horses, the next time out, in a similar type field, could easily win. Unfortunately, Got Narrow could run on Wednesday if he doesn't look for him in the future. Jet on Home, the one I prefer.
Yeah, well, Jet on Home actually, legitimate trouble there for her for sure. But I didn't realize how good a race Got Narrow ran until you just pointed it out there that the horse was up near the pace and dropped back and was able to come on again. That's a nice effort from a first-time starter for a state-bred maiden claiming tag.
Yeah, unfortunately, if he gets in today out of the A's, you'll be watching this race, and if he wins, you'll be thinking, how could those guys possibly show the horse? Sorry, we really wanted to show Jet and Home. Like I said, if he doesn't get in, Got Narrow, put him on your watch list as well.
Second race we'll take a look at from before the break is an allowance optional claimer. It was a 6th race on Saturday, December 13th. We're taking a look at the 3, Akai, who's pretty much, I guess you could say, in trouble from the start till about the half-mile pole, and after that he doesn't feel like finishing.
Yeah, he already steadied out at the start, as you could see in those familiar IEAH stable silks, the big brown silks, if you don't know them. And he's now going up behind the heels of horses, and he's behind the 3 horses. And instead of sort of tucking in, he already drifts out 3 to 4 wide on the turn. He finds himself behind. And as you'll see, and you just really have to watch him, he is basically steadied the entire time.
Yeah, it's just a miserable trip pretty much from start to finish here. We're going to just take a little break to highlight him again there just to show you where he is. And, you know what, pace-wise, okay, he's not in a bad spot here. He's behind a contentious pace here, but the horse was in trouble, steadied pretty much the whole way. Joseph Barrios Cruz, the jockey, apprentice jockey, steadies him there. And then there's one more steady here that I think after this happens, Akai's just had enough and he throws in the towel.
Yeah, as you can see, he stays badly here. And this was on Saturday, the 13th. And this was kind of a disputed day on the inner, where you could make a case that it was a strong inside. It was one of the few days, if only days, the rail seemed very strong. The horse who's dueling on the rail, and it was almost a suicidal pace, is the 2nd place finisher in this race, Take the Bluff, and he survives this duel. Behind them, Run with the Lark is in 6th, getting a great ride from Rajiv Mirage, who gets him over the rail in the first turn and basically saves ground the whole way. Akai is between horses right now, but he's been wide and in trouble the whole way, and I think that the rail was the place to be. So you combine his wide trip with the steadying, you get a horse that just pretty much threw in the towel. And Run with the Lark, of course, comes off the fence. Rajiv Mirage, patient as can be, is able to angle out. Run with the 2nd place finisher once again. Looks like he might win here. Run with the Lark mows him down.
And another horse that was on the rail, Numani, the number 1 horse, finishes 3rd in here. So you had 3 horses on the rail most of the way, running 1, 2, and 3 in here. Certainly something to consider when these horses run back with the trips that they had in here. And of course, Akai also another horse that, I don't know, we're kind of on the fence about. What do you do with horses like this? A horse that obviously has had so much trouble trouble in this race. Was 4-5 in the race and is going to be heavily bet again next time.
Yeah, it depends where he shows up. He has some talent. He finished a decent third in the Indiana Derby behind Pyro and Tin Cup Chalice, or I should say Tin Cup Chalice and Pyro. He had that good allowance win at Saratoga. He's shown some potential. I wouldn't hold this race against him. So if you can make a case for him based on his prior form next time he runs without this race, his price will be a little bit better. I'm glad you mentioned Numani. I thought Numani was dreadful in this race.
Yeah, I think it was just a product of where he was in the race, how the race unfolded in front of him, and the fact that the rail was good and he sat on the rail.
Right. He's a horse that I look forward to betting against every single time he runs. He's been overrated since he bolted, and Javier Castellano was able to get back into the irons last year for that visually impressive win against a weak field. He's been overrated. He had a perfect trip win at Saratoga, but I want no part of Numani next time he runs. Akai, you'll judge it for what happens.
All right, the final race we'll take a look at. The first segment here is a stake race from the week before the break. It was the Foil Stakes. Number 7, Access Fee. Looked like to me to be the controlling speed in the race, but you know, sometimes things don't work out coming out of the gate, and you see the number 7 Access Fee break slow here. You know, maybe about 3 lengths slow or 4 lengths slow, maybe at that, and it kind of changes the way the race is going to be run here.
Yeah, she's sort of steady. It's hard to tell exactly what happens, but it just changes the total dynamic of the race, because even if it's a length and a half or 2 lengths, it doesn't matter. As the race unfolds, she's farther back, and you have a horse that was going in the front and setting the pace. Whether or not she would have won is another story, because what's interesting about the race is even with that, the pace still collapsed. But watch her now as she's moved into 6, as she's moving outside of horses. I thought not only was the race completely changed, but she still ran a tremendous race.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a horse that I thought had some talent coming into the race. Watched some of her races down in Maryland for trainer Mike Trombetta, and just looked like a horse that really looked very solid. Makes this 3-wide move here. Obviously, after breaking slow, kind of being taken out of her game and having to make this move, her chances are compromised here. The race is kind of collapse, as you said, and horses are going to come from off.
Yeah, you know, the eventual winner was the horse who was steadying back the 3-horse behind horses in 6. And this is the kind of horse that I think people are going to think was more impressive than it was, because she's sort of in some traffic there. But for my money, all she did was sit behind a pace that collapsed and move up inside of horses and look like she had trouble. But really, all in all, I don't think she ran that well. This race did not come up that fast. I thought Captivating Kathy, who actually finished well back in this race, but ended up contesting the pace and had kind of a tough trip the time before that, is another horse to watch. Now, she's entered in the 3rd race on Thursday. If you're a loyal watcher of Trips and Traps, hopefully you'll see this show before she runs, or you'll be watching going, why are they showing another horse that already ran and came back, whether it won or not? I thought she ran okay, but there's no question. Access Fee is an interesting horse to watch, but I thought it was just the dynamics of the race being changed that made the race so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, per se, no, I would have said it would have been a little bit more tricky had one horse gotten away on the lead, because you figured Access Fee was going to be up there if things changed so much where, you know, one horse was able to set up shop on the front end and got away with the loose, easy lead and won. But it seemed to me to be a pretty fair result with horses coming from off the pace. And you're right about Captivating Kathy. Captivating Kathy is back in, I think, a 2-turn race on Thursday, and she looks like she's going to be the main speed in there. So an interesting horse. If you're watching Trips and Traps and you can see it before Thursdays, definitely take a look at her in the race and see what you think, because I think she's got a shot in there.
Right. We're trying to make there be some impetus for you to get right to the computer the very second that Trips and Traps gets itself up. That does it for this first episode. Appreciate your watching. Once again, that email address, tripsandtraps@NYRAinc.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We've heard quite a few since our last show about 3 or 4 months ago. We'll be back in just a few seconds.